be done in love like
Hey guys, we're Kristen and Jarrell Abraham.
Welcome back to our channel.
Thank you for tuning in. And this is our next episode in our marriage series.
Yes.
Alright. Bringing it into the real time.
Oh, man. So today's topic is a heavy one. Marriage, sex, and intimacy.
Yes. So, why this topic?
You want to tell him? You want me to tell him?
I'm going to tell him. No. You want to tell him? I'm going to tell him. Okay. So.
I'm slightly shy about this topic.
You're slightly shy?
I think so. Like, like in public.
I know. So, we're talking about this because it seems to be a little bit of like taboo. And a lot of people in the church don't want to talk about it. And I think more so a lot of new age pastors are talking about it in more like detail than in the past. And it's important because there's a lot of things that come with having sex. And when you have sex outside of marriage, there's a lot of baggage. There's a lot of guilt. There's a lot of hurt. There's a lot of shame. And then when you come into a union, it's like, okay, well, what do we do now? You know?
I agree. I have to say that intercourse and intimacy is the area of marriage where you will find the most wounds and the most hurt you will ever find in your partner's life that has gone unaddressed.
Yeah, and it's really sad because that's not how God intended for it.
Correct.
And it is supposed to be a way for you to connect with your partner. And once you look past all the other outlying factors, then it's like you're really able to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Which is nice. So we're gonna actually go and read through scripture. We've been doing a lot of that for this series, which I love. So actually, I'm gonna put this down, my little book, my little notes, and we're going to travel to Songs of Solomon. So we're gonna go to Songs of Solomon 4:1-7. Yes.
Okay. Behold, thou art fair, my love. Behold, thou art fair. Thou hast dove's eyes within thy locks. Thy hair is as a flock of goats that appear from Mount Gilead. Thy teeth are like a flock of sheep that are even shorn, which came up from the washing, whereof every one bare twins, and none is barren among them. Thy lips are like a thread of scarlet, and thy speech is comely. Thy temples are like a piece of a pomegranate within thy locks. Thy neck is like the tower of David, builded for an armory, whereon there hang 1,000 bucklers, all shields of mighty men. Thy two breasts are like two young roes that are twins, which feed among the lilies. Until the day break and the shadows flee away, I will get me to the mountain of myrrh and to the hill of frankincense. Thou art all fair, my love, there is no spot in thee.
And then we're going to go to verse 11.
Okay. Verse 11. Thy lips, O my spouse, drop as the honeycomb. Honey and milk are under thy tongue, and the smell of thy garments is like the smell of Lebanon.
And verse 16.
And verse 16. Awake, O north wind, and come, thou south. Blow upon my garden, that the spices thereof may flow out. Let my beloved come into his garden and eat his pleasant fruits.
Okay.
Spitting game.
Spitting game. So this is the game that we were talking about in one of our other episodes where, and the reason why this is called Sex and Intimacy is because a lot of what happens in the bedroom actually happens before you even get there. So the intimate part is what we were actually talking about in some of our other episodes, where it's like this checking in with your spouse, really having those one-on-one conversations and really building a relationship that's not just about the sex.
Right. So let's just say that the sex is a conversation that strengthens the intimacy, but that conversation does not start or end in the bedroom. Most of that conversation takes place outside of the bedroom. So, your daily interactions with your spouse and the everyday mundane things that go on from moment to moment, the conversation, or at least the room for the conversation, is there during those times. And if you keep that narrative going and you actually implement it, that's where the intimacy is created, is sparked within those moments.
So let's go to Soloman 5, verse 16.
Okay. Song of Solomon, chapter 5, verse 16. Okay. His mouth is most sweet, yea, he is altogether lovely. This is my beloved, and this is my friend, O daughters of Jerusalem.
And then we're going to go to chapter 8, verse 3.
Okay.
So while he's looking into that, so basically that verse is like really like professing your love
to everyone.
They should know what time it is. So that's also a part of what makes this such an intimate moment and really makes it such a gift, is that that's your person and everyone knows that that's your person.
Right. It's the same I guess you could say it's the same concept as claiming, the claiming after the claiming.
Yes.
So this is verse 3, Solomon chapter 8. His left hand should be under my head, and his right hand should embrace me.
So, that's actually parallel to, can we go back to, I think it was 4:16.
Solomon chapter 4?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So those two verses is kind of like where you really get an idea of where they're going with this, and like how how do you say like the bedroom talk, I guess.
Yeah, pillow talk, bedroom talk, intimate conversation, or I would more look at it as a romantic.
Right, romantic gestures,
yes.
The way that he's holding her.
Whoever is writing
this
is spitting serious game.
Yeah.
This is King James game. You know what I mean? But like, all jokes aside, that's literally what they're doing, and it's different. It's on a different level only because this is within the confinements of marriage, but not even the confinements or constraints, but within the container of marriage.
Yeah.
And the person means it. See, it's not the real thing if they don't mean it,
Yeah.
And I think that takes away from the intimacy when they're just saying things because they sound good or just to say it, Like, even if the moment would call for it, it has to be sincere. So, that's probably the main part of that narrative, is that like it's showing us that sexual intercourse or the intimacy between husband and wife was meant to be something sacred and something holy, something that's revered and praised by everyone that's aware of the fact that those two have joined together as one flesh. And it's something that they shouldn't be ashamed of. It's not something that they should like hide or be in secret about. They should actually when you're having intercourse with your spouse, it's actually a form of worship to God. You're honoring God through your marriage. So I think that's really the main underlying narrative here.
I think also, like, for me, reading those scriptures, it kind of speaks volume to the fact that it's not necessarily about you being pleased, but you pleasing your spouse. So really, just like anything else, what you give is what you get.
Right. And the Word of God, it constantly, implements that concept and shows the reader that perspective, that it's better to give than to receive, and that there's a gift that keeps on giving. The more that you give, the more you get. So I think, what God intended was that our sex life be the same, was that you dedicate yourself to your partner, and that you focus on pleasing them as opposed to pleasing yourself out of like a selfish desire.
So we're going to go to 1 Corinthians 7:2.
All right, verse 2. Nevertheless, to avoid fornication, let every man have his own wife, and let every woman have her own husband.
Okay. So basically what that is saying is that to avoid having sex outside of marriage, you should join together. So every one man should have one wife should have one husband, and that should be, the sex should be confined to the matrimony.
Correct. But your desire should be towards your spouse also. So, a lot of the times we are used to the narrative, or we're used to the perspective of marriage being a trap, or it's being like this ball and chain type thing where we can't move in freedom, but we shouldn't actually want or need the freedom of moving around promiscuously, going from partner to partner, and looking for pieces of a whole. What marriage is intended to be is to be that whole picture, that whole package, and you should be looking for your partner and looking at your partner to be that to you, to presenting them to yourself as that entire package. So, the beautiful thing about that is that if you find yourself in a place where your partner is not fulfilling your needs or satisfying you on a level that you desire, this conversation leads to that path, okay? So the more intimate that you desire to be with your partner, the more you make the effort to do so, and the more that they meet your effort, the closer you get to that objective of them being that whole package. And eventually you become their whole package, their entire package too. That's just in the predicament or the circumstance where it's not like that. You know what I mean? If you're not looking at each other in the right point of view.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's how God intended it, I would say.
Yep. Proverbs 5:19.
Okay. Proverbs chapter 5, verse 19. Let her be as the loving hind and pleasant roe. Let her breast satisfy thee at all times, and be thou ravished always with her love.
So that is kind of like what we've been saying about like just the interaction and pleasing your spouse. So you're not in it for you.
Right.
Right. And the more that you aim to please your spouse, the better, it will be with time. Like, it should always get better with time.
Right.
Like wine, you let it sit. However the process goes, they say that wine gets better with time. Cheese, it gets better with time. So I'm just saying, so certain things are they're supposed to get better with time. And when you properly care for them and you know what you're doing, it'll get better with time. That's why I use those two examples. Because, listen, because you can mess up with some cheese and it'll just be moldy. So,
you are silly.
You gotta know what you're doing.
But she's not wrong.
And then I want to go to the intimacy part. So the intimacy, that's like your foreplay, and it's not just about what you're actually doing to arouse your spouse, because compliments can be arousing to your spouse.
You have to find out what they like.
Right. Communication can be a form of arousal.
Some people they have the type of marriage, or you might have the type of marriage you just sit and talk to your spouse. That's arousing to them. It turns them on. It excites them for you because that's what they like. But that's the point. You gotta find out what your person likes. You gotta find out what your spouse wants. And I think it's just really just going into it with the mindset of taking care of that person. You know what I mean? That's what works for us. We make sure that we're looking at each other like, I have to take care of that person. I'm going to take care of that person. As opposed to, I gotta take care of myself. I gotta look out for myself. we're like the total opposite. Like I think we're just wired like that, maybe, but right. But it's just one of those things where that's kind of how we operate, you know. So.
And then we're gonna go to 1 Corinthians 7:4.
Okay. Chapter 7, verse 4. The wife hath not power of her own body, but the husband. And likewise, also the husband hath not power of his own body, but the wife.
Mm-hmm. So that, I just wanted to touch on that because it's like the Old Testament and New Testament, I've said this before, it's like parallel.
Yeah,
you know, so
absolutely.
So they definitely go together. And to me, why I would put that into the intimacy part is because me not having power over my own body is me, you know, fully submitting to you, and you know, you not having power over your own body is like, that gives us leeway to really just give ourselves to one another.
Absolutely.
And it's like, to be fully open with your partner is really, it's a beautiful thing.
I'm going to tell you something about that too. From a supernatural sense, when your partner is dedicated to you in that way, if God forbid they're ever in any type of trouble, that gives you the authority to pray for them and help them get deliverance out of that. Because if you're in charge of their body, you can literally pray over their physical persons. You can anoint your spouse. You can, you know what I'm saying, cover your spouse in the blood. But you have to have the authority to do that, right? Because that's the flesh of your flesh. So, you know, that, I think that's really the part of it that most people kind of overlook. But, you know, God forbid you go through turbulent times or trials, tribulations, that's what's needed. You know, that part, that aspect is definitely needed.
And it really speaks volumes to, you know, all of our other episodes when we were talking about teamwork, and it's like marriage is a partnership. Yeah. So, because I belong to you and you belong to me, like, we really have to look after one another. Absolutely. And, you know.
I think we're doing a great job with that.
I think so too.
Not to pat ourselves on the back, but you know, it because we make the effort to.
Absolutely.
And, you know, it's like we make it a point. Like it's a priority to us.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I genuinely hope that this has actually helped, you know, somebody.
Absolutely.
And, you know, understanding more, and you know, we've said this before, and I actually would like to do a specific like series on like sex and intimacy.
Yes.
I think that would really be a good idea, because I know a lot of people are like in bondage, whether it be their desires or whether it be because something happened to them. Right. And you know, this is really an area that a lot of people need to get free in.
They do, and they need to call on their spouses, you know, as well as God, to help them get free, because believe it or not, your spouse can help you. That's true. That's true. But I mean, in the case of marriage,
yeah,
you know,
for this particular thing, because we're talking about marriage, where that's what I would like to do, like a separate,
like single and dating type.
I think just an overall general, all inclusive.
Oh, just about the believer's sexuality type.
Yeah. Yeah,
absolutely. Because then you could go from category to category and just basically give as much information in each aspect as possible. That'd be dope.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So stay tuned, guys. We're going to cook some stuff up.
Yeah, we are. All right. Well, we thank you for joining us.
Yes. We really hope you took something away from this. Hope it's a blessing to you. And thanks for watching.
All right. Bye.